Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are starting a new episode where we take a closer look at one of the most recognizable British tanks of the Second World War, the Crusader tank. This was not a tank built to dominate through heavy armor or overwhelming firepower. Instead, the Crusader was designed around one main idea: speed. It was meant to move fast across the battlefield, strike quickly, and support British armored operations in the harsh deserts of North Africa. The Crusader, officially known as the Cruiser Mark V, became one of Britain's most important tanks during the North African campaign. To understand why it mattered, we first need to understand its role. The Crusader was a cruiser tank, which meant it was built for mobility, reconnaissance, and fast attacks rather than slow infantry support. Unlike infantry tanks, which were heavily armored and designed to move with foot soldiers, cruiser tanks were expected to exploit gaps, outmaneuver enemies, and operate across open terrain. In desert warfare, that kind of speed could be a major advantage. The Crusader was developed after earlier British cruiser tanks proved they could not fully meet the demands of modern armored warfare. Britain needed something faster, more reliable in theory, and better suited for long-distance desert operations. One of the key ideas behind its speed came from the use of Christie-style suspension and a powerful Liberty V12 engine. This gave the Crusader impressive mobility for its time. On roads, it could reach around 27 miles per hour, and under certain conditions, crews were able to push it even faster. For a tank operating in the early years of the war, that was extremely impressive. However, speed alone could not solve every problem. The early Crusader models were armed with a 2-pounder gun, which was effective against some early enemy tanks but quickly became limited as German armor improved. Later versions received the 6-pounder gun, giving the tank much better fighting ability against Panzer IV and Panzer IV models. Its armor also improved over time, but it still remained relatively light compared with heavier tanks on the battlefield. The Crusader first saw major action in North Africa in 1941. It served with British armored units during important battles such as Operation Batlix, the Siege of Tobruk, and later fighting around El Alamein and Tunisia. In these campaigns, the tank became closely associated with the Desert Rats and the fast-moving armored battles of the Desert War. When it worked well, the Crusader could be fast, aggressive, and useful in wide-open terrain, but it also had serious weaknesses. Axis anti-tank guns were a constant danger, and the Crusader's armor could not always protect it from well-positioned enemy fire. Even more damaging was its reliability problem. The desert environment exposed flaws in the cooling system, air filters, and engine performance. In many cases, Crusaders were lost not because they were destroyed by enemy tanks, but because they broke down before they could finish the fight. By 1943, the Crusader was becoming outdated. Newer tanks like the American Stuart and Sherman offered better reliability, stronger firepower, and more balanced combat performance. As a result, the Crusader was gradually replaced in frontline tank service. Still, it did not disappear completely. Several special versions continued to serve, including anti-aircraft models, armored recovery vehicles, and gun tractors. In total, more than 5,000 Crusader tanks and variants were produced, making it a major part of Britain's armored history. Now, let's rank the Crusader. For firepower, it earns a 3 out of 5. The later 6-pounder gun gave it respectable performance, but early versions were underarmed, and the tank could not easily accept larger guns. For speed, it earns a 5 out of 5. Mobility was the Crusader's greatest strength, and in North Africa, it was one of the fastest tanks on the field. For armor, it earns a 2 out of 5. It had better protection than some earlier cruiser tanks, but it was still vulnerable to anti-tank guns and heavier enemy weapons. For reliability, it earns a 2 out of 5. Mechanical problems were one of its biggest weaknesses, especially in desert conditions. For overall usefulness, it earns a 4 out of 5. Despite its flaws, the Crusader played a vital role in Britain's desert campaign and remained useful in several specialized versions. That gives the Crusader a final score of 16 out of 25. It was not the strongest tank, and it was far from the most reliable, but in the right conditions, it was fast, flexible, and important. The Crusader represents both the ambition and the limitations of British tank design during the early years of World War II. Thanks for watching, and join us next time as we rank another historic fighting vehicle.